Hello everyone, my name's Holly. I'm a game designer, but I'm mostly the wrong sort of game designer for this conference. I usually make stuff... Oh, content warning. There's some genitals and talk of sexual activity in this. The genitals are 25 pixels, so that they're not very explicit, but I did put a lot of time into getting them as explicit as I could within those 25 pixels, so up to you. Anyway, generally I make physical games. I make events and installations and stuff where people play things with each other in the physical world. So this is a game I made called Hotel Room for a festival called Play Public. And the way Hotel Room works is that 2 or 3 people go to a hotel room, which is just a normal, immaculate hotel room, with a computer sat on the desk. And on the desk, on the computer, there's a little description of the room that they're in, and they can go through a tiny interactive story about what else has gone on in that room. And while they do that, a soundscape gradually builds up in the room of previous people who've been in that room. And people are given different little physical games to play with each other in the space. So this is a game where you lie on the bed with your hands behind your back and try to get your legs over the other person's legs. And so there's various things that you do and questions that ask you about how you behave in a hotel room. And then after 20 minutes, it gives you a few minutes to do what you like and kicks you out. So I'd go in, or one of my helpers would go in, clean up, set it back up to be like a normal hotel room again for the next person. One person made a balloon flower, no idea how. One person left 3 really dirty cotton buds in the bin. There were no cotton buds in the hotel room. I don't know why they had cotton buds with them, but they clearly did. One person scrawled, "I am going to kill you," in lipstick on the mirror, and left a trail of toilet paper leading, like lipstick smeared toilet paper leading throughout the room. One pair of people took about 20 minutes longer than they were meant to, and when I eventually went and knocked on the door because a queue was building up, they opened the door to reveal him entirely naked and like semi-erect, and her standing behind him fully clothed with a camera taking photos of like his back and my really, really surprised face. So yeah, things like that. We will come back to penises later in this talk. But to move off of them for a moment, I've also worked on things like this, which is a game called Scotch Hoppers, where I worked with a choreographer called Brighton Hartley to sort of reimagine hopscotch as a street-wide installation on a street in Glasgow for 10 days during the Commonwealth Games, middle of last year. And like this, called Games for Places in East Durham, where I designed very site-specific games for 5 or 6 different locations in villages around East Durham, and then painted the rules on the ground, along with other things that help people to play the game. So in a park, for example, we painted 40 or 50 autumn leaves on the ground that the real autumn leaves would fall on top of. And we had games painted on the ground, stenciled, like when you're walking your dog around, get a point for each leaf it walks across, unless it walks across a yellow leaf, in which case you lose all of your points. And we watched where the dogs like to hang out and put yellow leaves in awkward places. And then games for groups of people running around and jumping on the leaves and things like that. So you get the idea, right? Physical games, installations, events, things in the world. And yet, here I am, which is partly because this sort of game we don't have that many festivals, we don't have that many conferences, we don't have that many contexts to talk about the work we make in any depth and hear about what other people make and take learnings and information from that. So kind of I spend a lot of time hanging out at digital games conferences just because, close enough. Like, you keep letting me come to them, so I might as well. I was on a panel at REST in Birmingham, I guess, a year or 2 ago, and someone asked me at the end of the panel what my hopes for the future of video games were, and I just thoughtlessly said, I don't care, but nothing to do with me, which was poorly thought through, but I think they weren't filming at that point, which is fortunate. But, you know, I come to these things, I talk to people who make digital games. I play some of your digital games. I think about them. Sometimes I have a bit of my head going, they're all right, some of these digital games. Like, it's not like they're worse. They're just different. I wouldn't mind trying them at some point. This is another game. It was called New Year Games. It was in Edinburgh on the 1st of January 2012 now. It's a while back, but I've got the photo of it because this is the biggest game I've ever been involved in. We had about 10,000 people playing on the streets of Edinburgh over the course of 4 hours. It was pretty exciting. But there are things that I'm jealous of in digital games. So you can make a thing and then other people can play it, even if they're not there in the space with you. Really, really jealous of that. And then if you want to show it to people, you can take a screenshot. You usually don't have to hire a photographer and get them to be in the place, and then probably get some people to pretend to be playing, because people really playing look terrible, and you need people pretending to play in order to document what it felt like for the people who genuinely were playing. When the game's over, it doesn't vanish forever and ever. Like, it can stay around and people can play it in the future. And you don't need to go to the place where they are in order for that to happen. And you can just change a thing, and then that thing's different. I showed you the picture of the New Year Games before. We had to close a road for that game. We had a helter-skelter in the middle of a square, which was in there partly because I drunkenly wrote it in a game design document at 2 a.m. Like, helter-skelter in the middle of the road. People will play helter-skelter bingo, which they did. They got a ball with a number on it, they slid down the helter-skelter, and they walked out through a tent where people were playing bingo. And that was amazing, but men had to get up at 4 a.m. of the event and put the helter-skelter up. If I want flowers, I have to go out and buy some flowers. The ability to just decide that you want something to be different and then make it different without having to grapple with the physicality of it, I'm super jealous of that. And this is a kind of weird one, but it's tricky for people to cheat. In digital games, generally, the bounds of what is permissible behavior are implicit in the bounds of what the game actually lets you do. Obviously, there are some exceptions, but it's kind of tricky to cheat, whereas in physical games, everyone tries to cheat all the time. Sometimes you've just got to go, people are going to cheat. The only thing I can do is damage limitation and make it possible for them to cheat without other people noticing. Because the bad thing about cheating isn't necessarily that someone's cheated, it's that other people see and have less fun. So I've genuinely had games where I go, I cannot stop people from cheating, but at least I'll make sure that no one else notices and gets sad. So there's a lot of stuff about digital games that I'm kind of jealous of. But there's also some stuff that makes me a bit suspicious. So the other side of you can just change things and have things in the world is that if you want a tree, you have to make a tree or get someone else to make a tree or buy a tree or find a free tree and put it in there, rather than going outside where there are trees because it's outside and there are trees there. And once you've made it, people play the thing and you can't run around going, this isn't quite working, quick, send more people up there. You can't be on a walkie-talkie every time everyone is playing the game, like talking to producers at the other end, telling them to change stuff. Programming seems kind of hard. That's quite intimidating. Maintenance requirements seem super tedious. A lot of this is just the flip side of the things I'm jealous about, right? If a game vanishes forever, there's no requirement to maintain it. You can't go, it doesn't run on the new iOS blurg. Like, you just go, it's fine, it's in the past, no one cares anymore. And also, finally, I'm kind of used to being broadly patronized at a lot of games events in a way that I'm now used to and know how to deal with it. People occasionally say things like, have you ever thought about making a real game? Or people look a bit confused by my being there. Less now, more a few years ago. People look a bit confused by my being at a games event and being a woman, and then they find out what sort of games I make and they go, oh, they understand now. The world isn't confusing them. And that makes me feel a bit guilty that I can't contradict them and say, no, I do programming with numbers, but at the same time I'm used to it and I don't really care. Whereas if I start making digital games, then I'm kind of stepping onto the turf of the people who patronize me and giving them whole new ways to do it. So that's also slightly intimidating. But at the same time, there is all of this stuff I'm jealous of, right? And I do keep going to these conferences and seeing really, really cool things and going, I wouldn't mind giving it a go. Now we have to step back in time to the end of last year. These two threads will converge shortly. End of last year, there were some very, very peculiar changes to UK law, specifically to the UK law around charging for streaming of pornography online. This is slightly complicated, and there was a lot of stuff saying, this stuff has been banned in pornography. It wasn't specifically banned, but what happened was, in the past, there were limitations on what you could have in pornography that you were selling, and selling meant basically DVDs. And at the end of last year, those restrictions were expanded to stuff that was sold online. So now there were some things that you could no longer do in pornography that you were selling online that you were previously able to. Some things were still fine. Here's a list of things that were definitely still okay after the law changes. Gagging on a penis, fine. Bit of gentle slapping, also okay. Tying someone up is all right. Gagging them is all right. Double penetration is okay. Ejaculating on someone, men only, also okay. Throwing up, as long as nobody involved seems to enjoy it. You can have pornography where someone throws up, but if it seems like people are getting sexual satisfaction out of it, that's no longer okay. And here are some things that are not allowed. No fisting past the final knuckle. No urinating onto someone. This is slightly complicated. You can urinate on the ground, and then someone can sit in it as long as you've cut away, and so that people can plausibly think, oh, it must be prop wee now. Sitting on someone's face, not okay. You might suffocate them. Who knows what could happen? Tying someone up and gagging them isn't okay. Only one at a time. Slapping too hard, it's not entirely clear where the line falls, but there is a line. And finally, female ejaculation. And this, weirdly, is a subset of urinating on someone not being okay, because who knows what female ejaculation is? No one has any idea. It could be wee, it could be lava. We just can't tell. Science has nothing to say on this point. Better ban it just to be on the safe side. And these struck me as being really, really bad game rules. It's playing a game and going, is this okay? No, it's not. I don't understand why I can do this and why I can't do that. And I was also casting around going, I have a few free days. Might be fun to thinking about trying to make something digital. And hence this game, Pornography for Beginners, which is a game about the changes in UK porn law. I'm going to take an exciting break from the slides while I play the game for a little bit to give you some idea of what it's like. Let's have a new game. So you're a tiny little figurine, you're wandering around and you're trying to make some porn. If you wander around outside for too long, it tells you to hurry up, sends you into the shed. There's quite a lot of writing in it. I'll skip through some of it. So you go into the porn shed, and initially you have to try to figure out how to handle a penis, how the game works. You've got these penises here, and you can push them around. This is mostly a level that teaches you what the different body bits look like, because I made this in a tool called Puzzle Script made by Stephen Lavelle, and 5 by 5 pixels is all you have for everything. And it's quite hard to distinguish, for example, an anus from a vagina in 25 pixels. But you can push these around and get used to the idea. Putting a penis in a wine glass is legal, it's fine, but it's not acceptably sexy. But you can put the penis up the bum. And then you can see on the side that the scoring penis grows. Your aim is to get the scoring penis to the top. So where else can we put this? Great work. Remember what they say, a penis's place, why not try a face? So then you go on to a new level, and here you find out about female ejaculation and urine being A, dangerous, and B, apparently two sides of the same coin. So if you, for example, push, this also helps you to learn which is which, but if you push an ejaculating vagina onto a body part, then everything's very, very sad, and the scoring penis deflates. Ejaculating penis is fine, and it grows. I've now messed up on this level by making the scoring penis deflate, and this one's quite tricky. I'm going to have to restart because otherwise we are just not going to have enough genitals to successfully inflate the scoring penis. And this is basically what the game is. There's 5 or so different puzzle-ish levels of pushing around different body parts and different props and learning how they connect and what the limitations are and how it all works. And there are lots and lots and lots of different interactions. Basically, I spent maybe a day getting it all working and trying to draw penises, and then 2 days just making, these are all of the rules for different ways things can interact with each other, like what happens when you push different things onto different stuff. There's sort of weird secrets like the boobularity, where if you get 8 breasts in a row, they collapse into one super dense breast, which sucks the whole game screen into it. Weirdly, quite a lot of people have, and then eventually it sucks the tip of the scoring penis into it, and that counts as having finished the level, and you go on to the next one. Weirdly, quite a lot of people have discovered the boobularity. There's also a thing called the cockopolyps, which, as far as I'm aware, nobody has discovered. And the way that works is that if you get 4 ejaculating penises in a row, they ejaculate onto the screen, and a little bit of the screen is covered in like white gloop, and you can't see what's going on behind it. For some reason, people have not discovered that. It is in the last level, so I guess possibly people don't necessarily make it. This level is about, acceptable levels of slapping and unacceptable levels of slapping, and the distinction between, you can let the bottom cool off a bit before you go back for more. Too much spanking, scoring penis is deflated. So basically this level is also about the difference between open hands and fists, so you can accidentally do some fisting. This is the first level that people occasionally come to me at parties and go, I couldn't get past the fisting level. So I'm not going to go through the rest of it because I'm running short on time, but eventually you get to the final level, which is this one, where all of the props and all of the different body parts that you've learned about, you can just run around and do whatever you like with. So I had a super, super lovely time making this. I spent a few days on it. I finished it off. I sent it into the world. Some people played it. Someone did a Let's Play of it, which was super weird. The background music to this is J.C. Chassez's All Day Long I Dream About Sex, and one of the comments on the Let's Play was someone going, I hope she got the rights from J.C. Chassez to use that song. I definitely didn't. And I think the reason that this worked, when previous times I've attempted to come to grips with making digital games and not really managed it, I think there's a few of them. One is it was a fun test case. I wanted to sit down and see if I could make and finish a thing. I'd also made a couple of Twine games before, and I've read a lot of articles about how everyone can make digital games and there are all of these tools. And I've tried and I've made a lot of games that aren't digital. I basically have a decent understanding of game design, but I do butt my head against stuff quite a lot. So I'm sort of using myself as a test case to try out different tools and see which ones work and why they work for me, and trying to figure that out. So it was a fun test case for that. PuzzleScript is very, very limited on what you can do in terms of graphic and sound by design. If you can't have more than 25 pixels in your penis, then there's no pressure to make it photorealistic and amazing. Lots of clear guidance online, really, really good tutorials. It's possible to make personally expressive things in it. Other tools that I've made have been very, very focused on make a thing that jumps along or make a thing that pushes stuff around in a way that I found difficult to make something that was funny or was interesting or personally expressed something I was interested in. So PuzzleScript allowed for that. It looks kind of complicated when it's done. That thing I showed you at the end, all of the typing with numbers and punctuation and all of that stuff. Like, there's loads of it. I felt really proud of myself. It just kept going and going, all in different colours. Like when I see other people's computer screens, I felt really pleased with myself. Because it was relevant to a thing in the news, I had to finish it really, really quickly. Like, it wasn't going to be something people were interested in for very long, so there was a time pressure on it, which meant I couldn't spend a week on it or 2 weeks on it and then end up going, I can't be bothered finishing it. I had to just, polish it off quickly. And finally, not quite finally, it's browser-based, which meant I could start poking around in it without downloading anything and committing to it. I could go, I'm just trying this out, probably won't do anything, try this for half an hour and then stop, and then 3 days later go, well, I didn't stop, I guess. And finally, penises are super funny. So having 3 days of just pushing them around and making all of these different interactions happen just kept me giggling at the table constantly. So I don't know what's going to happen next with me and scary digital games, but my plan is to keep trying out different tools and keep trying out different ways of making things when I have a few spare days and see how it goes and kind of look on myself as a test case for how it works, what things are intimidating, what things feel welcoming, how it all works. I guess I'll let you know how it's gone in, a couple of years. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I don't think you have to justify your being here even without any digital games. You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
I'd actually like to hear more about sorry, I didn't see any hands, so I decided to ask the question myself. About reactions to the game and what followed. Maybe you can tell us a little more about what happened after you released it?
Yeah, reactions were basically pretty positive. People would either tell me that they'd played it and they thought it was funny, or they'd tell me that they'd started playing it at work and then figured out that it was not work appropriate and that they would definitely get around to it sometime. There was quite a lot of people being slightly awkward at parties, wanting to tell me that they'd enjoyed it, but also, it's basically a page of genitals, right? They finding it kind of amusingly awkward to talk about. The comments on the Let's Play were kind of amazing. I understand that you're not meant to read them and blah, 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 but I did anyway. And lots of people were kind of amused or positive, but there were also people going, does someone expect us to pay money for this? No, obviously not. Of course not. Why? Where did they get that idea? Where does the idea that if a thing is a digital game, it must be something that someone's trying to sell? It's a thing I made in 3 days. Obviously, I'm not trying to sell it. But so there were people being slightly irate at the low production values, which I found charming.
Yes, over there.
Hi. I remember there were quite a lot of news about people campaigning, making protests around this change of the law. Have you been in touch with any of the people doing the campaigns or the demonstration? Was there any kind of contact with that kind of community beyond the gaming community and designing?
No, I've not actually talked to anyone who was involved in the protest. So, for example, there was a sit-in where people did mass face-sitting outside Parliament in order to protest this law. Haven't actually been in contact with anyone about it. I feel like some of them must have stumbled across it while searching for news stuff about it, but I've not talked to anyone about it. And it's not a topic I have a personal investment in. I'm really miserly and I don't pay for porn, so I'm not personally affected by it beyond going, this is a really dumb law and slightly sexist, and I don't have contacts with anyone in that community. So I have no idea how they responded to it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Thank you, Holly.